first off, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So we're sitting here. How do we describe this room here? So this is.
This is our smaller dressing room, and this is one of the exclusive backstage peaks that you get to our Lookingglass Theater here at the historic Water Tower Waterworks building, which is a building that survived the Great Fire. And in 2003, this building, a portion of it was given to us through DCASE for a very minimal amount per month. And then we turned it into a theater. So this is the backstage of that, one of our 2 dressing rooms.
That is awesome. Yeah, as we were taking a look at places to record this, so the lobby. Let's not leave that out. I'll have to take some B footage. But the lobby's beautiful.
Yes.
Just underwent a new renovation.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a library in there? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, right now we've got a Chicago Public Library branch. The Waterworks Library branch is in there. Before the large renovation, the room was kind of closed off and reminiscent of all the various things that had been in that space before. And then our Lookingglass footprint was expanded through the city's allowance. And so we had received this funding from the state to renovate. It was a capital grant to specifically renovate that space. And so while we were dealing with all of the pause in operations, that was one of the large factors in whether or not we wanted to continue if we were able to. We had all this like brilliant stuff that was upcoming, but the challenge of moving through that exact moment in time. But one of those things was this grant to renovate that space and make it just this beautiful, large room with all of this natural light from the windows facing Michigan Avenue and Pearson Street, to build in a bar and cafe, to host all sorts of events, which I'm sure we'll talk about it eventually, but that it's really broadened the ability for us, who normally just has the theater space to do our main stage productions, but now we can provide all sorts of programming and educational opportunities in that space, as well as special events and all that. But it's gorgeous, and you should come.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's kind of get right into it. So
Okay.
we'd love just kind of an overview of. So we're sitting here at Lookingglass Theater, right? Chicago is rich in culture. There's kind of a lot of options. Lookingglass has some unique aspects to it, not to mention the real estate that we're sitting in. But we'd love to just hear kind of from your perspective, as the artistic director, what that means to you, and just kind of a general overview
of Lookingglass.
Lookingglass.
Yeah, well, so Lookingglass was founded long before I was a member. I think it was 1988, and I should know that exactly. But there were some founding members that were graduates of Northwestern University, and they were a great group of friends that was wanting to make theater as cool as MTV had become at that time. So the story is that people stopped coming to see live theater because MTV had become a craze. Everybody was staying home watching music videos, or it just wasn't as exciting anymore. And so this group of friends were like, we want to be as cool, and if not better, than MTV, so people will come back out and see what else theater is capable of. So if that story has continued, which is, the type of theater we do, it expands the limits that were previously set. So we're always being inventive and transformative and collaborative and bringing new and original works to life in ways that have never come to be before.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is involves some spectacle and physicality, where our most recent production that closed in March, Circus Quixote, was an adaptation of Don Quixote, but with circus. So we're bringing just like the virtuosity of these performers who can sing and act and do circus and, just all sorts of spectacle. And this next show that's coming up, Iraq But Funny, is a spectacle in that it has a lot of projections and the way that the stage and the scenery moves, but also just in the abilities of the performers in handling the comedy alongside like this really heavy content. But you would never realize that you're being educated because of how hard you're laughing. And I just think it's a it's a brilliant piece that I want everybody to see, because it's a spectacle that I have not seen before at Lookingglass, just how well it handles that line. So yeah,
that's awesome. And I can only imagine. I mean, the going to shows, anywhere recently, there's been so many changes in some of the I'll say the engineering, right, or the technology that you're seeing, kind of newer type of things. I can only imagine in the space that Lookingglass has what that experience would be like. And I was also curious, with the layout of that space too, that also seemed unique to me as well. We're not in some giant theater with, the folding, red velvet seats and that sort of thing. I wonder if there's anything interesting about the space.
For sure. Yeah. It's one of the few spaces where you can get that scope of spectacle in such an intimate setting. We can at most get about 200 people in that theater. So you are right in front of it. You are often enveloped in the performance you're watching. And that's such an appealing thing to, especially for a place where we want folks to gather and have shared experiences. You are right there in it and next to your neighbors and hearing everybody interact with the actors as well. So I think that space is really unique here in the city, especially for a company at our size. To be able to make it that intimate is really special.
Yeah, it's 100% unique. We walked, and thank you for giving me the quick tour on the way in here. So 200 people, that's what that's. So how many shows? So your next production that's running, you're only running, you have to run one production at a time, I would assume, because the stage has to be built. How many shows are performers doing a week or a month?
So for this next show, Iraq But Funny, we'll have 7 shows a week, but we could bump up to 8 or possibly extend. And then per week, we'll run for 6 weeks. And again, if ever it's just like people are lining up out the door and we just can't provide enough seats, we can extend. So, but yeah, about 7. Typically, a Lookingglass show is going to have 7 shows a week, 7 to 8.
Interesting. And so, so we've got one show, we've got 200 seats, we've got 7 nights a week. That's a huge commitment on, I guess, one story or one topic. Would love to know a little bit, and if you play a role in this, in determining what show we're going to do next.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's such another thing that really sets Lookingglass apart from the theater industry at large, and also in Chicago, is that we are one of the largest ensemble-led theater companies in the country. And that is really challenging, but also incredibly what's the right word? Incredibly moving to see that this group of people, this group of 33 ensemble members, each with their own preferences and their own, this is what I want to see, this is what I want to see, but we all have to come together every year to determine what our season of shows is going to be. And before our pause, we had like 3 to 4, sometimes 5 shows we could put in a season. And now we only get 2, right? But we have like this other programming we can do to scratch those other itches, but we only are able to produce 2 shows a season this year, and hopefully ramping up over time to get back to where we were. So there's a lot of conversation, and so I'll just talk a little bit about our new works development program, which is where we then get to make those decisions on which shows come in. We have this program called Glassworks, where ensemble members, artistic associates get to submit a proposal. Like, I have this idea for a show where a person falls in love with a vampire, and and then we see that and we invest in it. We think this is a good idea. Let's provide you some resources so that you can develop this into a script. And then that script would then move into a workshop phase where we say, okay, this script feels like it's ready to get some actors in the room. Let's provide you with a week-long workshop where you can try some of this out. And I'll just say it's very rare that a show can just be chosen without going through some sort of development. It certainly happens, but because it's all new and original work, and because it's much harder to produce new and original work, that development time is essential to all the Lookingglass shows. So then it's gone through these phases. We have proof of concept. This feels like this is a solid show. We feel like we can market it well. We feel like it'll sell. People want to hear this story right now. And the whole ensemble, with all of that output or input from staff and board and other company members, the ensemble will go into a room and really discuss like, what 2 shows do we want to do? And we share, and then we vote. And for this season, we really wanted to showcase our range. We only had 2 shots, right? So we want to show this large circus spectacle. And then we also want to have something from a new ensemble member, Atra Asdu. So we're kind of showcasing David Catlin and Atra Asdu So yeah, that's a long answer, but it's a hugely collaborative process picking the show or the seasons in a
That's
shows in a
super
season.
cool. There's been a lot around SNL lately because of their anniversary, and there's a couple episodes on how they select acts, and of course that's I guess a much smaller thing, but that's what it reminds me of because it's original. You don't know how it's going to land or not, and testing through that. That's super cool. I guess that makes sense, but didn't really 100% think of that. Okay, very cool. So, what were some of the factors that kind of played into this upcoming production?
Yes, I think that we had brought in 4 new ensemble members, and it had been some time since we brought in some new voices and new perspectives, and that was very important coming out of this pause in 2023. Was we were, as I think theaters were everywhere, not really sustainable. Our model wasn't working, and so I think we needed to have products that we could rely on, which is I think why you see a lot of theaters right now producing shows that are super popular, or like Clue, or things that your audiences are going to know and they're going to understand what they're getting into. But with new and original work, nobody has any previous experience, and so it's a huge risk to do new and original work. But that's something that we were really excited about. So I lost track of the question. I was gonna get back to it.
How we selected this next.
How we selected this season. Yes. So when we had our pause and we all huddled together, we had like these different papers on the walls that had some of the values we found to be most important. And once those were all posted all over the walls, everybody only had 4 stickers. And these are pieces of paper that talk about our educational programming and our scene shop, like all aspects of the company. And then people went around with stickers and had to pick their top 4. And one of the most hot items was new and original work, because what we had been doing, we were bringing back beloved shows and running those. And so we knew that this was really important, even though it was a little riskier. We wanted to do new and original work as we came back. So that was a huge part, because we could have said, we're going to do Steadfast Tin Soldier. We know people absolutely love that show, and oh my gosh, it's the best show ever. But our choice was to say, no, we're going to listen to Where the Heat Is and pick some new and original works here. So that's part of the reason that we chose these 2 shows. And then, as I was saying, kind of like having a founding members piece and a brand new ensemble members piece felt really great. And both of these shows are also in a way shows that bring people together, and it feels especially divisive right now in the world. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to just get people in the room together and laugh and have a good time and remember that this is super important. It's this shared experience.
No, 100%. And it's interesting. Take a look at the work that my team does, which does, UX, UI design and builds websites and apps and things like that. I always find parallels in the way that different organizations work. So as you were describing the process of picking a show and having a room with pieces of paper everywhere and everyone gets 4 stickers.
Yeah.
We do that in my world too. It's called a design sprint, right? As you're taking a look at like an app or an interface and a new way to design it. I won't educate the entire process of design sprints, but there's a moment.
Take it though.
I should show. I'll after this I'll give you the playbook for it. But it's a process that gets everyone's creativity involved, because often in the business world, the first person who speaks, right, kind of takes over. Oh yeah, that is a good idea, right? And there's all sorts of politics and balance in that,
right?
And so there's a scene, the design sprint, where everyone kind of draws their own pictures, put them up on the walls, and then same thing. 4 votes. Right?
I love that.
With stickers. And nowadays, we use a tool called Miro, which is a virtual way of doing it. Not as fun, but you can still do it if you have folks that are dialing in from, the set out in LA or something like that. I don't know how that all works. But I like having people together. The other thing that's really cool and inspiring is original is hard, right? But without it, we stay the same.
Yeah.
Right. And, knowing that the theater, and like most of Chicago and most businesses beyond Chicago, had some challenges, right, with COVID, right? And also after, it took a little bit for people to get comfortable, especially small spaces. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a resurgence in that for the IRL experience in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But so many shifted to do something different because it was easier, right? Coming out of that, there's a lot of organizations that are now working differently since that. The most obvious one is how many non-return to office organizations there were,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see an impact. There'll be a lot of things missed
Yep.
in that, even though flexibility is, I guess, desirable for some. You came back stuck to your guns
Mm-hmm.
because that's the product, and I
Yeah.
think that's going to have a huge payoff because that's my familiarity with Lookingglass Theater is that,
Mm.
right? I know it's going to be if several titles will have something where I go, I bet you this is a riff off of that and in a new perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's something completely new altogether. And there's a place to see Shakespeare. There's a place to see, the traditional Nutcracker Ballet and all that type of stuff. But there's not necessarily a place at this level.
Yeah.
Doing something brand new. So I appreciate the decision to stay creative and original.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that's where everybody wanted to go. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So staying on the business itself, and you mentioned this in your voting process, you do more than put on 7 shows a week.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other ways, when I say what are other aspects of the Lookingglass Theater business?
For sure. Yeah. So we have our education department, which has many branches on its own, but we go through Chicago Public Schools with our residency program where we bring our signature ensemble, team building, devising new works into the classroom so that kids who have never heard of devising their own story but are all naturally inclined to do that can have that kind of format. So yeah, we're going through Chicago Public Schools. We have a young ensemble program, which we have 13 to 16-year-olds audition and go through a process that's very similar to a professional acting program. And so that they rehearse for 3 months out of the year, and then they have performances open to the public in our theater space. And they have the option to, become an actor in that show, obviously through auditioning. But they also can say, I'm more interested in learning about stage management or costume design. And we're always looking for ways to expand and enrich that program for them. So there's their young ensemble program. And then we have some kind of one-off courses that will go that wrap around like our production. So for example, with Circus Quixote, we had adult and youth classes, meaning both could come to the same class, but that was thematic to the show. So Circus Quixote, I had a lot of circus. We had a juggling 101 class Wednesdays before the performance. So you could either just come for that or you could add on to your seeing the show and learn how to juggle. Why not? And so for Iraq But Funny, because there's so much comedy and improvisation in that show, it'll be an improv 101 class. And these are all super low key. It's meant to like spark curiosity, try something new. You're not signing up for a whole series. You're just getting a sample. And so those are super fun. And this is new because part of the papers on the wall was instead of like eliminating or reducing our education, we really wanted to hone in and like give it a boost so that it can become more present rather than like this thing that sometimes people forget we have.
Right.
So bringing that into this new lobby space. And, we have to keep taking baby steps because we're still at a very tiny staff. So we have a lot of goals we want to reach, but we're just taking baby steps, one thing at a time. And eventually we'd like to have, we have our camp, for example, we're bringing back camp this summer. We'd love to have like multiple camps in a year, but we don't have the staff to do that just yet.
Gotcha.
So this is our education wing of the business. We also have our scene shop, which has been such an incredible realization when we were looking at our model and trying to figure out how we can be more sustainable. A large part of that, because we'll never be able to make enough from ticket sales to cover the costs of producing a show.
I was doing
impossible.
The math, 200 seats.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
never going to get there unless you have like a one-person show, with very minimal. It's a very difficult thing to make your money back on a show through ticket sales. So we rely so much on contributed in a year. But the scene shop was something that came up through our strategic planning where maybe we could find this new stream of revenue by opening up that resource, which has like proven itself immediately and is still just able to book outside work. And what I think is especially lovely about that is it's providing a new source of revenue for us to offset the cost of producing art, but also it's a resource for all sorts of different theater companies and other arts organizations who either don't have those resources, don't have a shop of their own, had to reduce and eliminate their own scene shop. So now they can come to us for a rental fee, or like if they need us, if they just want to say we want this, and then we can, you know, help them find their dream, make their dreams come true. But anyway, so there's that scene shop element. We also have oh right, this is the new exciting thing. So with this new bar and cafe and outer lobby space, we're exploring what it is to host events out there. And one of the first things we're hoping to do, there's like been some dabbling by hosting smaller events and kind of putting together little programs as we learn more about that. But we hope for our season 25-26 to have a monthly talk show. And we'll be piloting that in June. But it's just a great opportunity to bring people in who may not consider themselves theater goers, who maybe never seen theater, but they can come into this awesome space and hear from different people in the city from all different trades, different backgrounds. It's really a way for the city to meet itself while also being introduced to this cool building and maybe learning a little bit about what happens in that theater right next door.
Yeah.
But so I'm super excited about that. Oh my gosh, I just touched my microphone. Super excited about that. And then what else? Gosh, other aspects that I'm forgetting about the business. Maybe I'll interrupt with some other thoughts when they come to me.
No, that's okay. By the way, I just wrote down the phrase help the city meet itself. I've heard be a tourist of your own city and things like that, but I love that phrase. That's going to appear somewhere else.
Nice.
And also kind of back to the scene shop thing. That's really interesting. So to make sure I understand, you've got facilities, meaning machines, saws, all the cool stuff to build scenery. Is that here?
That is not here. Great question.
Okay.
No, that is not here. We have a scene shop on Carroll Street. But that is one huge scene shop. So it's exactly like what you might be picturing with saws and a CNC machine, which I'm learning what that is. But we also have storage space there where we keep our past productions. But yes, that place is always buzzing with saws and drills and paint, and so
that's awesome. I'm a woodworker, builder.
Oh yeah, I should give you a tour sometime.
Like that. Oh yeah, that's gonna be our first stop after this if it was here. But. Very cool. And so you're using that kind of almost like a maker studio. Is it purely other theater companies that are renting that?
Not necessarily. Usually? That's how it's starting, but again, it's still like about 1 year old. Thinking of it in this new way, it was before just for our productions, but we're, you know, people as they're learning, and we're developing relationships regularly, like Chicago Children's Theater and I believe Writers Theater and Paramount we've done some builds for. So I think as more people learn and experience working with us in that way, it might move into other spaces, and maybe like some studio or film and TV might need like, hey, we need a living room. I don't know. But I think that it has potential to go beyond theater.
It's a very smart way of looking at the resources.
I think we'd like to do the same with our costume shop, but that's still probably a couple years away. But still trying to think of like, all right, we need to figure out how we can use the resources we have in ways that can offset these costs.
No, it's super intelligent, and I think you also mentioned it might be so common but you mentioned contributions.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is a huge factor as well.
Huge factor. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think at one point in time it was like I'll just say that right now I think we're at a 30% earned revenue and 70% contributed. So that's the amount of giving we look for every year. And it's only through the support of those individuals and those institutions and foundations that we could even be here. So that's, you know, and I think that giving has changed since COVID, which all of it makes so much sense. But I think theater companies everywhere are trying to navigate like, oh, well, we used to have this corporation that was interested in supporting the arts and supporting, you know, um, cultural institutions in that way, and their giving has shifted. So every year is another like who's giving now, and how do we navigate this? So I think that it's always a challenge trying to figure out where those where that revenue will come from.
Yeah, and I've seen it outside of just theaters, but nonprofits in general, right? A lot are going through a shift. Part of it too is some of the more traditional. You get the one or two folks that are footing the majority of it, right? And it is those groups kind of age. The idea of micro donations and that sort of thing has been kind of a shift that I've seen in other nonprofits as well, which is I love the theater. I don't have to think about it in terms of making a $10,000 donation, right?
Yeah.
While I'm here, do a little, and then it just turns into awareness, helps that. And I think
Yeah.
that the idea that you've got events that you're going to start doing here, and there's so many different avenues that I could see really connecting with folks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk about you for a little bit. So artistic director. What I know of you is you're an artist in many ways in terms of performer, musically, theatrically, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. An artistic director. Explain a little bit about what that role is here.
That's such a good question. I think that I think I've learned a lot since becoming artistic director, the amount that goes into it that is not really what the title sounds like. There's very little artistic direction in it because most of that is done by the ensemble.
Sure.
And so when it comes to directing the art or choosing the art, it's more this role is kind of navigating all of the different voices in the room and trying to steer in a way that best represents the company. So I think that one day they should reconsider the title itself. But no, I think that there's so much that goes into it, and as I was saying earlier, our staff right now has been cut in half from where it used to be. So I think that right now in time, the artistic director holds a lot of plates that probably it shouldn't, but it's where we are right now. And so my hands, you'll see them in like marketing and development and education and like people management and trying to get everybody in a good mood when they're in the workplace. And so I guess there's a little bit of everything that the job holds right now. And I'll say my experience before this was a lot in a majority was self-produced work. And so it feels like it came at the right point in my life because I was already bringing people together around a cause and figuring out how we could put it into motion. And I feel like that's what the company needed coming out of that pause, was a person who can like get everybody together on the same page-ish and get it moving. And I think sometimes I'm just a little pushy about it too. And maybe that's a good thing for now. I don't know. But I'm like, come on, where's this voice? So I don't know if that answers the question, but right now I would say the artistic director at Lookingglass Theatre does quite a bit. What's
something you spend an extraordinary amount of time on?
I would say there's a lot of communications. I would say a lot of communications with all the different individuals in the company who have such great perspectives and feedback. So taking all that in is so important. And you're not often having like a conversation over 5 minutes. It'll be probably like 45 minutes or an hour. So you add those up with the various people, and that kind of takes a lot of time, but it's also one of my favorite things to do. So
I was about to apologize for taking your time.
No, I absolutely love it. But yes, if I'm thinking of things that add up, that's probably one of them.
No, it's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about, you said the with artistic director, maybe we should change it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I would say let's keep it.
Okay.
And here's why.
Okay.
Because instantly you get a sense for the background this person likely has or their appreciation, right? So if it was executive director or something like that, I don't know, do they understand me, right? As the people that are working with you, and being someone that has that used to self-produce, and now you're kind of on the business side of it. I'm sure you feel the same, but it gives you a huge opportunity to relate to the folks that you're working with here. And I think probably even more importantly, they know that you know, right? So I think I can relate to that a little bit. I don't know if I'm doing it well, but like when I first started my business, it was me, and then I brought in a partner, and we built websites, and we could do all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you start adding people, you no longer are doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now you're making sure that they have everything that they need to do this stuff. And I think it's important, particularly in the creative world, to
Mm.
kind of have that angle. So I like it.
I'm so glad you said that, actually. I never thought about what it means to people who are coming into the company, that this is a person that comes. That's great. I love that. Let's keep the title.
We'll keep it. We'll keep it,
Yeah.
at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, perfect. So want to move into very quickly kind of the Chicago landscape, how
Mm-hmm.
that plays into the theater, or does it?
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely think it does. I haven't spent much time in New York or LA or many other cities really for a long period of time, but I think that from what I've gathered, Chicago is a city where artists can really do the work and really just like immediately get in there and start making some stuff, because it's not as expensive to live here. And you have all of these people that are ready to play. And I think there are many places here where you can find a community and put together a show. So I think Chicago has that tremendous strength going for it in the theater landscape amongst the country. I can't talk anymore all of a sudden. But no, I also think that Chicago is very much a working city, and it has an attitude that is like, I remember hearing, I was sitting in on a Choose Chicago event, so I hope this isn't a spoiler alert, but that instead of like talking about how we're a city of neighborhoods, or wait, how do I phrase this? Embracing that we're a city of sides, instead of like trying to, you know, downplay the fact that clearly there is a north side, a south side, a west side. We embrace that. That's who we are, and we work together and we come together in all the areas that we do. And I feel like that's just the whole Chicago vibe, is like, when something needs to get done, we'll band together and we'll do it. And that is the city in general, but I think that relates to the theater industry too, where if a story needs to be told, or if somebody needs to be called out, or whatever it is, like, people are banding together and making sure the right voices are heard. And I think that's just kind of Chicago too. So I would say that Chicago theater reflects the city's attitude.
That's very awesome to hear too,
Yeah.
because and I've heard that regardless of business, it's some folks call it grit, right? Chicago
Yeah,
grit.
that's a great word. Yes.
But I also love. I've not heard. I totally agree with. But I've never heard someone say that we embrace the perspective of the different sides, because we do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the business community and the general community, right? There's just so much diversity that all kind of works together. And plays to those different strengths.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, as a kind of a closing question, because we'd wrap up here in a little bit, probably have performers coming in. But one of the questions I'd like to ask is, if you were given, in your role, $10 million in budget.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
How do you think you would spend that for the theater? That's a mind blower, right?
That's a really big. My gosh. I don't know how it would break down. But what I would love is for as many people to know that we're here as possible. And I think it's sad that there are a lot of people in this city and outside of the city that have never heard of Lookingglass, have never been in this extraordinary building. So I would put some of the money toward that, just getting recognition out there, and the rest. That's a good question. I don't think I can answer that all in a moment.
Well, I love it, and it's almost a trick question, because no one's used to getting a 10 minute. What do I do with this? Right?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, let's have a lot of conversations to decide how to invest that wisely. But what typically comes out of the responses, it cuts to what's on top of mind, and I wish we had more of in an organization. And so to hear you channel that towards exposure and marketing and getting folks in here, knowing that you're running a machine on not massive budgets and working through different ways of getting funding and stuff like that, says you've got a great product.
Yes. Yeah.
And it also tells me that I know you said earlier that you've got about half the staff used to and things like that. Also tells me that you've really figured out how to do the things you need to do with the team here, and must have an incredible team.
It's such a great team. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So that's amazing, because that's a great model for growth and scalability, right? You got the product figured out. We just need to bring more folks and get more exposure. And also, as a final note to your response to that, it wasn't let's bring people in here to make more money. It's let's bring people in here to showcase what we have to offer, which means at the end of the day, putting something out that people will love is really kind of the center of passion.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And for people to, I guess, to just get out of their houses too, and like be in a space together and laugh in a room together feels like a big part of it.
The simple things.
Yeah, sometimes just go outside and laugh and go. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I will be. So when does the next show start?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just plug a couple things.
Please.
We have Iraq But Funny, which is a hilarious, brand new world premiere written by Atra Astu. That opens May 29th. And that closes in July, on July 20th. And then we have Lookingglass Outdoors this summer, where we have our annual ritual called Sunset 1919 on 31st Street Beach. And then we have Ice Cream Circus, which is a Lookingglass production in association with Actors Gymnasium, where we take a circus show out into the parks. So we'll be going to the different neighborhoods of Chicago. This is a free show, and you don't need to speak any language to understand it. So that's happening the last-ish week of August. And we have a talk show on June 9th. And then you'll be hearing about our 25-26 season announcement very soon. But those are the most upcoming things.
Yeah, most. It's a
the most upcoming things, yeah.
Okay, so I don't have a $10 million check, but to help in promoting that, what are the best ways for folks to mark their calendars and find out about what parks you're going to be at, when shows are, and ticket sales? I'm sure the website is one of those. Yes,
website is probably where you'll find all of that information. But if you want to come into the historic Water Tower Waterworks building here at Michigan Avenue, Chicago, we'll have our lobby open our lobby open to you. You can hopefully come purchase a coffee and talk to one of our wonderful front of house staff. Get to know the company a little bit as you're traveling the neighborhood and exploring the city. You can just come talk to us.
I love it. Yeah. And
but obviously our website, lookingglasstheater.org.
And for those not familiar with the location of Lookingglass Theater, we're in Water Tower, which is Magnificent Mile.
Yeah, the pumping station.
The pumping station. We're still supplying water to the Chicago Fire Department, as I understand.
Never stopped, yes. That thing's been pumping forever.
Amazing. So just a super cool part of the city, a lot of energy, perfect way to spend a summer, spring, fall, autumn, through all the seasons out there. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kasey, this has been amazing time. I know. I thank you for the time too. I felt bad stealing some with all the plates that you have. So
this is my favorite plate to carry. And I keep touching my microphone. So yes,
I'll
thank
take
you.
It. I appreciate the sloth's attendance.
Yes.
As well. So you can tell
what
your
was
daughter,
the name of that book?
I will find it.
Okay.
Sleeping sloths. The sloths go to school. I'll find it.
Okay.
I'll send it. And you'll let your daughter know that your sloth's been on the podcast.
Yes, she'll be very proud.
Cool factor. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kasey.
Yeah, thank you.